in GenAI we really feel India can be a leader.
So the mission, what we have taken, we want to enable at least 500 non-tech CXOs in
Okay.
India. No?
Oh wow, that's a big number.
The biggest part is how fast you build that,
Yeah.
how fast you either succeed or fail. UC is a graveyard of projects. There are around 300 plus GenAI startups in India. Right? So what mostly works, I've seen, is a hybrid model.
Hi everyone and welcome to another episode of AI Adventures. I have with me today Ankit Bose, head of NASSCOM AI, and as always my co-founder Abhinav. Welcome to the show, Ankit, and so glad to have you here in Bombay.
It's my pleasure to be here. I think we have had amazing discussions inside. We'll have that same here.
Yes, look forward to it. Yeah. So Ankit, agentic is something we are all in on, and I think at NASSCOM you just released a report on it. But to our audience, and when we look at India and agentic, what do you think is sort of, why is it so important?
So let's define what's agentic in a very simplistic way, right? We have models which are sort of passive models, right? Like GenAI models or any traditional model. These are passive models which are able to generate insights out of that. Agentic workflow takes that a step ahead. These are systems who can basically reason, can take autonomous calls, right? And potentially also have multiple different agents talk between themselves.
The collaboration.
Yeah. And basically act on it, right?
Yeah.
Right now, I don't know whether we have reached a stage.
Yeah.
You right now having human in loop, but again, that's what, right?
Okay.
And why it is important for the nation like India and the global ecosystem. I think at this stage, right, when we are moving very fast on automation, AI, digitization, right? The next stage definitely is how can we optimize that? Right?
Okay.
How can we optimize the whole digitization?
Yes.
Which can be impactful, right?
Okay.
As we know, I think most of the AI projects or analytics projects we start, many of them don't go end mile, right?
Correct.
Why? Because the insights and the actions are missing, right?
They're not connected.
Right. So if we have more agentic frameworks which are self-maneuvering, that can really build that probably conviction with the management, with the top management and the users to implement and have it more adopted. I think adoption will increase.
So the flexibility becomes really important.
Yes.
Okay. And then how do you look at a CIO, an Indian CIO, they have implemented RPA, all the RPAs are working, and then you go up to them and say now it has to be agentic. What is that discussion all about?
See, again, we all know the journey of RPA was not so easy, right?
Yeah.
You had tools which were definitely needing specialists, and those specialists were very much in demand and less of availability, right?
Very true.
So the RPA journey was that, right? It took a lot of time to implement with a very specialized force.
Correct.
That has changed with agentic AI, right?
Okay.
Now agentic AI really is democratized the implementation of AI for any environment, right? So when you say your RPA took 1 year to implement, I have agentic AI framework which can be implemented in probably 6 to 8 weeks time, and you can see the result, right?
Yeah.
So that's the decision you start.
Correct.
And once they see the proof, they will start implementing.
They have to, right?
Yeah. They have
it's an imperative.
Yes.
Makes sense.
And are you seeing any industries adopt in India, in terms of, are you seeing different industries adopted at different paces, and which are the ones you're seeing are those outliers that are really taking the guard, saying, okay, we're going to be the leaders for agentic AI in India?
So I don't have exact an indication of industry specific for agentic AI.
Yeah.
I'll say AI adoption, and AI adoption is definitely having agentic AI as an
Key role.
key role. So what we are seeing the industries like manufacturing, TNT, right, CPG are the ones who are adopting AI faster than others. Now a lot of that is definitely the need, the hour from them, right? The other is regulations also, right? The other sectors like BFSI, healthcare, they're more regulated.
Yeah.
So whenever they have to put any AI or agentic framework in a production, they need necessary checks and balances, right? Whereas others, it's a bit easy for them.
Got it.
Yeah, I think that's what we are seeing.
So regulation sometimes can sort of step up the BFSI implementations.
Yeah.
Got it. And in terms of when you look at your role at NASSCOM, right, in terms of how are you sort of assisting companies, right? Because they're navigating technology complexity, some are navigating regulatory complexity, and some are navigating their business model only having changed, right? So, how are you at NASSCOM sort of guiding all these companies who are sort of saying, you guys are obviously getting information from the technologists, from industry, from ministries. How are you sort of guiding folks through this?
Very beautiful question, right? I think this goes well with the discussion what we are having inside, right? NASSCOM, as we are in the middle, right? Yeah. We are working with the government to see how India as a nation should, latch onto the wave of AI, right?
Correct.
And really capitalize it. We are in the midst of, the industry who is adopting AI, right? And how to make them adopt and really, reap the benefit of the sort of implementation. We are with the academia to see how this and the research can be clubbed and we can have the necessary research work at the same time people who can thrive or probably make this happen, right? So what we are doing is we are basically working on all of these areas. We are working, and I miss the startup who are doing innovation, right? Like you are a startup.
Yeah.
So what we are doing is we are basically working with government of India, that is state and central government, helping them think through how they should build that ecosystem, right? How can they be the catalyst, right? Which can really drive innovation, right, in India, using AI and emerging tech both, right? We are working with enterprises. I'll say enterprises again. I see from three lenses, right? We have big enterprises who are traditional businesses. These are CPG retail businesses, manufacturing businesses, right? That's the first one. The second big enterprise which are growing is GCCs, right? And third is tech SMEs and the SMEs, right? So we are working with all of them to help them grow the ladder of adoption of AI. And every recipe is different. You cannot have one recipe for all, right? I feel the biggest beneficial in terms of whole AI, we build the tech SMEs. I'll give you a number. There are around 12,000 tech SMEs in India. Right?
And what's a tech SME?
So these are companies who are mid-sized, between 20 to 100 million sort of revenue, with 1,000 to 2,000 people odd approximately. And they have been building a lot of services, product from India, right? And these 12,000 tech SMEs contribute to maximum amount of the 8% GDP we claim, right? The tech GDP.
The tech GDP.
Yeah. So having them adopt AI is a big mission what we are driving. Right? I think what we did last year was one of its kind in the world. Right? We basically ran a program called AI Champions. So everyone has run cohorts for AI for startup, right?
Yeah, true.
And you were part of our startup cohort, right? But for SME who are already a profit-making company, how to revolutionize that, how to change their whole dynamics. We work with them. We pick 12 SMEs, help them really implement AI on two perspectives. One is building AI business. We call it AI for business, business of AI. Right?
So they're in the business of AI.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So we help them build business of AI. Also implemented AI for their businesses. How can they make their probably sales, HR, finance more sort of AI enabled.
So what we call dog fooding, they are literally adopting technologies.
Adopting and also building. So we have implemented a playbook for them. Now we have a playbook which we'll take to all 12,000, right? So that's what we are doing for them. The second big intervention what we are doing as NASSCOM is the Indian enterprises, the analog enterprises. How can they really implement AI and reap the benefit? Right? And I think you will also agree, and a lot of other Indian companies will agree. We have started seeing the project increasing, right, from Indian companies. Right?
True.
And this starts definitely from CIO, but it goes to the non-tech CXOs also.
Very true, because they want a seat at the table, right?
Absolutely. The CFO, the CHRO, the CMO, right? So we are running a program called AI for CXOs, right? Which the Mumbai edition will happen tomorrow. So where we get all the non-tech CXOs in a row, help them see how AI can change their whole, the workflow, their processes, and how they can really reap the benefit. And also find what is the hindering amount, what's the point where they are not ready to adopt, right?
Or where they're stuck.
Where they're stuck, right? It's with the bottleneck. So we help them find that and help them go through that. So the mission, what we have taken, we want to enable at least 500 non-tech CXOs in India.
Oh wow,
that's a big number. Right?
One interesting question, right? So you talked about the big enterprises, the GCCs, and I think a lot of them go through this challenge of build versus buy, right? Should they, build this whole technology in-house? There's a lot of cool open source tools out there that are enabling these folks. And then there are a lot of great vendors and ISVs who are saying, why reinvent the wheel when we have it? So what are you seeing a lot of, on the ground when you have these conversations with these folks? Where are they leaning more towards, and what's that thought process that's going in their head?
See, it's a perpetual dilemma, right? Build versus buy.
Yeah.
Right? Many of the techies, they would want to build.
Correct.
And we have all the techies in this company, the GCCs and all the companies. But eventually they have to really think what is the business they are in. Right? They're in the business of probably building an flight, aeroplane, or a car.
Correct.
Or sort of
Consumer product.
Consumer product.
Yeah.
Right? So they will not. So they can always try to build,
Yeah.
right? But they will also have they will always have an edge in the business than building things, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So what mostly works, I've seen, right, is a hybrid model where the tech, the innovation folks in these companies, they work with an external partner, right? Again, this partner that can be a big company, enterprise, and an OEM. But I think what has really catalyzed, at least in India, is this culture where open innovation is led by such companies.
Yeah.
They work with startups.
Yeah.
And with startups, they tinker, they sort of ideate, they build something together, right?
Right.
Again, this is not the tech folks, the innovation folks with startup, but again, they also get the business folks.
Yeah.
So get a business guy
Got it.
or the domain guy, along with the internal tech team, innovation team,
Sure.
and the startup, and tinker it together and build something.
So it's almost like a tripartite partnership. Right?
Tripartite.
Okay.
That is probably, as far as I see, more successful as a model, right? But again, many a time you also are limited by the skills what you have, right?
True.
Like GenAI came in,
Yeah.
right? Hardly any people knew how to fine tune a model.
Correct.
True.
Still hardly.
Still hardly,
Yeah.
right? Hardly people know.
Yeah.
Now it's an agentic framework.
Correct.
Again, then multi-agents. We are
Yeah.
talking about A2A, MCP.
Correct.
All of this, protocol technology are really known to the people who are masters, who are doing day in day out.
Correct.
You can learn. You can sort of enable yourself. But again, building a team that can scale, I think that's a challenge. So eventually, skill also is an aspect they should think when they are doing this decision. Right?
Makes sense.
So they have to definitely have internal team who have a in-depth understanding, know-how, but they have to partner with the external partner who can really take to scale, right?
No, and I think you brought up a great point there, that I think if you kind of bring all the players together in a room, you kind of get the best of all worlds, right? The latest technologies, latest techniques, the business understanding and what would work in their environment. And that I think that multi-collab approach is actually, even we've seen, works the best. So I'm glad you said that.
And the biggest part is how fast you build that, right?
Yeah.
How fast you either succeed or fail.
Yeah.
Right? So that approach, internally if you do, it will take a lot of time. True. Right? You'll never have a big budget to try out multiple use cases.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Multiple failures,
Yeah.
handle all the,
Yes, right?
yeah.
With a startup, you can always try that.
Yeah.
With a probably external party, you can try that.
Correct.
And the agility of a startup is totally different than the agility of a stable,
big guy.
mature
Yeah.
company.
Long. Yeah.
Yeah.
And from that, I think, comes the interesting concept of this POC, right? It's almost POC, POV, they've been called multiple things. And you see it from both angles, right? There is the enterprise angle, de-risk me. And there's the startup angle, how much can I invest in a POC with you, right? And you sort of interact with players on both sides. How does someone navigate this?
So I have a very drastic view on POC. POC is a graveyard of projects.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Very true.
So you see, I think POC was a time where technology was not proven,
Yeah.
right? You should always, have a POC with a conditional order.
Okay.
Right? You should have a conditional order. So if we reach XYZ success criteria,
Correct.
right? Then I will give you the order, right? And
Right.
you move it. So I think go on that perspective.
Got it.
Then having a POC for 10 different startups or 10 different agencies,
Right.
and then you choose one and two.
True.
So that takes a lot of time. Your time.
Correct.
It wastes a lot of startups time,
Right.
right?
Right.
Again,
And I think the startups are no longer serious about it. They're like, you have 10 other players, God knows
Yeah.
if they're going to get
Yeah.
this.
So if it's mapping, then it's fine.
Yeah.
The other thing is that again, we have to be empathetic to startup,
Correct.
founders also. Free POCs are a really big burden on them, right?
Yeah.
And how many free POCs you will do?
True.
Right? If a conditional PO is there,
Correct.
then that changes the whole game, right?
Right.
The other part is, it's always best to encourage them with some sort of prizes, right? Awards,
Right.
or at least remunerate them for the effort they are putting.
Sure.
Right? Because that at least covers their, the baseline.
The baseline. True.
Many times the project or the AI which you're implementing, the use case might be very domain specific.
Correct.
They are bringing the know-how to implement it fast. For that use case, you're bringing business knowledge, but then the IP is the issue, right?
Yeah.
Then you together sit down and discuss.
Correct.
I think these are some thoughts I feel.
No, I definitely agree. I think from POCs we move to conditional POs, right? I think that approach just clarifies so much for everybody concerned that what is the end state? The end state is we want to contract, we want to work together, we want to collaborate. Whereas I think with the POC what happens, even though the proof is it's proven out, there is always like, okay, now what?
Yeah, the seriousness.
The
like,
seriousness
both
that
sides.
comes to the table. Yeah.
And POC is different in demo. Right?
Yeah.
We can always demo something very quick, agile, right?
1 hour meeting and you demo something,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
POC is very involved, right?
You spend at least 4 weeks, few weeks, and you
Correct.
spend a lot of effort.
Demo is, I would like equate it to, it's a very bad example, but like it's going into the ice cream store and they give you a little scoop, like a taste of it, and it's done in 30 seconds, right? POC is you set up this factory, this ice cream manufacturing in my setup, and then I will try it and then tell you if I liked it or not.
I'll make chili guava, chili kiwi,
Yeah,
different flavor. Yeah.
So, Ankit, you have a very good perspective. You almost straddle government, industry, and sort of in between. And there's this whole, at least last month, at least in India, this whole discussion came that we are not doing foundational when it comes to AI, right? We are a application layer. But I don't think so it's true. As a startup, I know the kind of work we're doing. We now have 3 patents in this space, etc. But can you shed some light on where India is foundationally working with AI and where Indian companies, startups, etc. are doing foundational AI work?
Yeah, so again, you have to see the complexity of what you're building on the AI versus the the reward or the key money, right? So again, if you start from the topmost complex, that is chip manufacturing, right?
Yeah.
The GPU, which is Nvidia's, the leader.
Yeah.
That's the most complex thing, right? And I don't think Indian companies have it. But I know there's a ecosystem which is building, which is trying to build something around that. That will take time. But beyond that, I think the GPU, cloud players are emerging. Like you have many in India, many in Bombay, right? So that's emerging. So that's a space which is emerging. The next one definitely is the model, right? The foundation model. Again, foundation model, it started with the Chat GPT. Now it's gone to multiple different ways. Transformers architecture, state spaces architecture, right? There's so many different architectures which are there. So which one to choose, right? Again, do we have a sort of frontier foundation model in India built natively grounds up? Answer is no. But there are efforts going on, right? Which basically are towards that. Right? I know there's a project in IT Bombay, BharatGen. There's a project Sarvam which has been awarded by Ministry of IT. There are other projects like Eka project from Socket Lab, again one of our startup. There are multiple projects which are trying to do something around that. Right? And there have been releases sub few billion parameters, sub 5 billion parameters on foundation layer, right? Again, for that you need massive compute, right? Which through various catalyzation which is being done by the government are happening, but it will take time, right? But we should not perpetually wait for that. We should move to the layer where we are really building in vertical specific or use case specific, effort, which also is a big thing, right? As we just discussed, fine-tuning a model is an art, right? And it's a muscle you have to grow as a sort of an ecosystem. You don't need 100 people, you need 1,000, 10,000, 20,000 people who can do that, right? So if you build that muscle, that only muscle will empower the others, right? So like we all know CUDA is the best available library over the GPU, and which others might not be able to equate. But if we start working on this layer, that other layers can be developed, right? So we need people who can do that.
Yeah, and if you look at, it's a slightly old memo of Google where they said, LLM is no longer a mode, right? The foundational layers, even if you see how the open source world is sort of working, there are so many of them coming. Maybe the value lies in the application layer, right? I think a lot of discussion when generative AI came out was, oh, you're a wrapper around ChatGPT. But now you're seeing the wrappers become more valuable because that's the user interface a user interacts with. I can replace the LLM instantaneously, but the wrapper has become important.
So again, the money, or probably the money lies in the realization of money using wrappers or application of the usage of the frontier models.
True.
And the money lies in the building of frontier models, right?
True.
So LLM is one, least reasoning model, quantitative model, right? All of these models have to build. Someone has to build. People are trying. Right? Again, I think I will never, shorthand the effort which is built or made by Indian startup, Indian companies to apply this frontier technologies in their use cases.
True.
So that's a big part.
Right. Yeah.
But do you think there, for a lot of these guys that are building this foundational model, right, is there a path to profitability? Because you end up spending so much money in building a foundational model. And shelf life, right, what used to be like maybe 2 years back, and 2 years back the shelf life used to be 9 months. Now it's like 4 weeks, right, before someone else comes in and beats you. I know there used to be a time where Falcon, the Middle Eastern model, was like everyone was raging about it, and then now it's over. Like that like if someone says I want to do a Falcon version 3 and I want to deploy that, nobody cares. So how do companies ensure that that they're investing so much in and maybe that's why India's not been that heavy on the investment side?
See, honestly, I think hand on heart, we never had that muscle power of resources to build this. If we had, we would have tried.
Correct.
And government of India is now empowering that, right? But in a way, I think what has happened is that has led to the application layer, which is very strong. Like startup like yours, and there's so many startups. I think there are around 300 plus GenAI startups in India, right? And more are coming every week. So that's getting very strong, right? And the services layer, people are building a lot of applications around that. But the profitability which is there, the other side, has been always a big question. Right? Like OpenAI still is not profitable.
Correct. Yeah, exactly.
And these companies have spent billion dollars in that. And OpenAI is not open. So though Llama is taking different route, which is open, but it's open way, right? To build those recipes is also a big task, right?
And it has Facebook's dollars to spend to build that. Right?
Exactly. Similarly, DeepSeek was a movement, right? Like the Chinese ecosystem built DeepSeek using the open source and the closed source understanding. Similarly, I think we'll also reach that spot. But coming to the profitability, I think apart from the chip manufacturers and application builders, all of these companies are still dabbling whether they are profitable or not. Right? I recently met a multi-model startup in Bay Area.
Okay.
They have been funded $180 million. Right? A team size of 50. Okay. And believe me, they're still finding their product market fit. Right? The PMF is still not there. Right?
Wow.
So 180 million is already given to them. Check, and NVIDIA is invested. Lot of big companies. But again, I think, so that's a good question. I think only time will only tell whether they are profitable.
What's the road for
What's
them?
the roadmap?
And you said 300 startups, right? Generative AI startups. So if I'm like an enterprise, what possible decision-making process do I kind of establish to actually choose the ones I want to work with? Because it's so difficult, right? I think there are a lot that are not doing AI, but they'll have AI in their literature. There are ones that are doing core AI, but they don't understand the use cases. So there's a lot to tackle with as an enterprise. How do they go about that search of saying, yes, this is the chosen one that I'm going to work with?
So work with GenAI foundry startups. NVIDIA is one of them, so you should work with them. We have selected top 60, and but having said that, I think it's so all of this 350 or 300 plus GenAI startups, they are very specific in their use cases. Right? So some startups are very BFSI oriented.
Correct.
Some startups are very manufacturing oriented, safety oriented, right? Healthcare, drug discovery. So they have their niche, right? So they have to really find the niche of that startup or startups which they would want to work, and then basically align. If the founding team is really having that know-how, right? A good probably give example, drug discovery. We have few startups, right? They have a very classic team of science and AI people working together and solving their problems, right? So you see all of that mix when they're choosing, right?
Got it. So yeah, what I'm hearing is basically startups that have done that use case before,
That's
that are built for that use case or industry,
domain specific,
or domain. They'll have a much higher chance of success, right?
Absolutely, domain specific.
Yeah.
But generic ones also, like a lot of startups would have proven their production readiness. Right?
Correct. Yeah.
Many of startups are still MVP stage.
Yeah.
But they have a good idea.
Yeah.
Right. So choose your risk appetite.
Right, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I
Basis
got it.
that. So you have to choose the startups who probably you think can be production in your environment.
Correct. Yeah. And I think the problem is even more exacerbated, right? Like you brought a great point, because in today's day, a bunch of college kids come together, they can vibe code something and demo it, and it'll look fantastic. It might not have a lot of what is needed in production, but when you as a company you're comparing these two demos, you'll be like, oh wow, this is equally as good and probably 10 times cheaper.
Yeah.
And then they make the wrong choice because they're not seeing whether they understand the business, the niche, production grade.
And the other part is, you see, what are the measures the company or the startup has implemented. Like, responsibility is a very good measure,
Yeah.
right? If they actually see, I don't expect all startup to implement, every aspect of responsibility.
Yeah.
But use case specific, the task specific. Are they thinking? Are they building those guardrails?
Yeah.
At
Is
least
it a
that.
framework?
Is it a framework they are at least thinking, they are implementing, right? I think that's a very good measure,
Yeah.
right? I think production readiness, have they scaled the product somewhere in some environment?
Yeah.
Right? And responsibility, I think, are three good levers. And definitely NASSCOM GenAI Foundry startup.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
I think you guys have done a great job of vetting and doing that first pass for these guys, right? To make their job a lot easier if you guys have vetted it, gone through them.
Yeah, and they're like sort of validated companies. When it comes to AI and generative AI, right? One thing is it's exciting India, right? This is we led the services wave, and then we said we can't become a product nation. We don't have the marketing bandwidth, but now we are getting there. In SaaS, we sort of got our first software products out there, and now in GenAI, we really feel India can be a leader. Because we are now we are understanding marketing also. And then when you look at the public market side, a lot of people are scared that our services business, which is contributing hugely to the economy, how does that function, right? How do the large 100,000, 50,000 people companies, how is their future? Because GenAI sort of makes it easier to sort of just have few agents do it. So how do we balance this? Our startups lead this, but what happens to our established giants? Do they sort of go this GenAI journey together? What happens there?
See, I can say that with very confidence. The last 1.5 to 2 years, a lot of these big service companies, they've invested billions of dollars in upskilling.
Yeah.
Upskilling of their own processes, their teams, their accelerators, right?
Right.
So that really are, really world class what they have built.
Okay.
Right? And they
build the ecosystem.
Ecosystem for themselves.
Yeah.
Now that is firing at all cylinders for them globally.
Okay.
So I don't find any challenge for the teams and the processes and accelerators what they've built, right?
Okay.
So they will definitely do it, because for deploying this at scale, you need definitely this.
And they have that DNA.
That
Yeah.
accelerator. They have the DNA.
Correct.
They have accelerators. They have people.
Right.
They have the playbook. They have know-how. Right?
Sure.
Because even for fine-tuning a model from 10 GPUs to 100 to probably 1024
Correct.
takes a different sort of understanding.
True.
Which they have built it, right?
And they have the governance.
There's a governance.
Right.
Like taking a use case from an India perspective to a probably Europe, US, right? Multi-country implementation. That's a different ballgame altogether. Right? You have different nuances, regulations, factors,
Got it.
your HR policies, all of that. Right? So I think so they have figured it out. Right?
Okay.
So they should be
So
doing
it's
good.
almost like the startups in these established companies, we come together and we really can take forward that India journey, right?
And a lot of these companies have IVCs, right? So they have very good collaboration with startups, because they know that their strength lies in scale.
Correct.
Right? Taking
Productionizing. Correct.
But innovation, again, the same as the big traditional companies. They also are slow in production, building innovation,
Correct.
agile innovation. With the startups can. So they collaborate with a lot of startups to take that.
And that's where I think NASSCOM serves as that bridge as
Yes,
well, right?
yes,
In terms of bringing it.
And we have been doing that, very regularly, building that bridge between the startup ecosystem and the enterprise ecosystem,
Right.
and give both the best of the world.
But then, interesting question, Ankit. Like you see, when you see all these tech demos, or not even demos now, when you use like all these platforms, right? You're like, wow, one coder can do 5 coders worth of work, and it actually works. It's not like gimmick. Or testing is getting automated at different level. When you see things like operator or browser-based AIs, they're doing all the steps, and you're like, wow, a tester would do the exact same thing. So we don't need that anymore. And you talk on the ground, people are like, yeah, we don't need as many people. But that it's not showing up in the numbers, right? In the ground numbers, like when you see a TCS, like there's still the same number of people. Their revenue hasn't fallen. When you see a big GCC, right? They'll be like, we're still hiring more people. So why is that dichotomy between what the world is seeing at the higher level? And maybe you have some insight since you spend so much time.
So there are 2 elements to that, right? Again, let's take first element, right? If you remember the 2K era or initial 2005-2010 era.
Yeah.
The website development was a big business.
Correct.
Animation development, Flash development was a big
Oh,
business.
Flash was huge.
Right?
Yeah.
So we used to spend months and months to develop that.
Correct.
Now that's like few clicks and you do that.
Yeah, web development especially, right? Yeah, it's
exactly.
a lot of effort on that.
Lots of it.
Yeah.
If you come now, app modernization is a big business. Right?
Correct.
Probably last 5 years, that's reducing. So generally last 5 years back, any big enterprise has to basically modernize 10% of their app.
Correct.
That 10 is increased to 20, 30.
Right.
That's how this will go. Right? The work will increase.
Yeah.
Okay.
Eventually, I think now anyone can just open a website like few clicks and in a half day they can have the best looking website, which we used to spend probably 6 months or
Months, and we would still have something that we're not like happy with.
happy about it, right? And static and more dynamic, all of that, right? So, so that's what will happen here. The other part is, most of the big companies, right, established companies, they have set processes in action, right? Again, a beefsteak company will have set processes in action. They cannot use the agile way of vibe coding to quickly change things. Right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they will need
There's a governance layer.
which is there. So adoption of this practices will take time in big companies, right? So again, I give an example of 3, sort of different ages, right? Or
Okay.
3 different sets. One is a big company which is probably Vivsai, healthcare, very regulated, right? Having lakhs and lakhs people across the globe, multi-globe, all of that. Second, probably a YouTube versus a startup, probably something like whatnot, right?
Okay.
A feature release in a big enterprise takes at least a year of planning.
Yeah,
true.
Probably in a company like YouTube or Insta and any of the new age companies.
Like a tech player.
Tech first companies,
Right.
or probably even Flipkart,
Right.
probably a quarter or
sure.
something like that, right?
Right.
A company like Whatnot, they release 2 features every week,
Yeah.
Wow.
right? So you see the process and agility of that. So
Yeah.
so when you become as big, your processes are definitely more rugged.
I got you. Scale, build for scale,
Build for
and
scale,
a little
yeah.
slower as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but actually you're right, that's an interesting point that I think because you can do a lot more work, you just end up increasing your wish list. Even as an org, right, that's taking services or as a GCC, right, you're just saying, okay, now my backlog can move a lot faster. Not that I need to do, like if I was going at an X pace, now I can just remove a certain chunk of my employees and continue at X pace. But if I can run at 2X, 3X, let me do that instead. I think that's a very interesting perspective.
And the other part is most of the world is not digitized yet.
Yeah,
right?
true.
If we can really build agentic workflows which can digitize, right? As simple as that, probably a manufacturing, a supply chain unit, right?
Yeah, true.
Various parameters are gathered, which is all on papers.
Very true, yeah.
Right? Can we have some agentic workflows which can capture all of that, give insights, even prescribe what to do? So I think all of that is quite possible.
So the quality and quantity of what these companies output will go up from a technology perspective. But the jobs are safe because it's the same amount of people that are doing more higher quality and higher quantity of
if they're enabled, if they are, they adopt the
right tech.
right tech,
So,
which I'm very sure that will happen.
Yeah.
At least in Indian context.
Yeah. India is like,
I think India is, and I mean that leads us to a very interesting juncture, right? When it's happening quickly, right? And it's happening quickly for everyone. Almost even we, being in the industry, feel like it's just too much, right? Like a new model launches, a new protocol comes in, A2A comes in, right? How does how do you or NASSCOM or anyone, how do you remain on top? Like, it's a question everyone asks me also. And sometimes I'm not sure because it's just exploded.
So I think there's no other hard way than reading.
Yeah,
right?
okay.
So I at least read 2 to 3 papers a week.
Okay.
Right? That is plus then other reading which I do through audiobooks, through YouTube, through a lot of research work what we do.
Okay.
I think putting a lot of time in your own knowledge upgrade is very important.
So it's right? Because the models are updating. Your own internal brainware to use those models needs to update at that same pace, right? I think.
And the other part is how you optimize your calendar, your time, your effectiveness, right?
Yeah.
So there are so much tools available you can use for them, right? So how can you optimize your every minute?
Right. Any specific AI tool? I know I'm putting you on the spot, but any specific AI tool that you find that helps you?
Any specific AI tool? So I use a multiple different tool perspective, right? So definitely I use ChatGPT, I use Claude, I use Grok, I use Gemini, and everyone has their own strengths.
Right? I like to set them to compete against each other. So Claude said this, what do you think, ChatGPT?
That really helps.
Right. And in terms of if you are like going to be entering the workforce in 1-2 years, I know NASSCOM is doing a lot to sort of help students sort of be ready for this world. But what would you tell them like is sort of key things they should focus on? Because I meet students and they're like, it's changing so fast, I don't even know whether I should be learning this because 6 months now it's going to be outdated. But what sort of framework they could have? Someone who's just coming in maybe in a year's time to the workforce.
I think engineering students, they should definitely stay rooted on the fundamentals, right? Fundamentals definitely of mathematics, stats, development, architecture, right? Because many a time what started happening is people became script kiddies, right? So we used to call them the hacking world script kiddies.
Right.
So move away from that, have the basic understanding because the tools might change, your understanding will not change.
Sure.
You have to know how to creatively apply to the problem.
Correct.
Right? That's how is the first thing, right? Keep updated, right?
Yeah.
Don't shy off from new, change. So in our time, probably 5 years was the time, 3 to 5 years. But now every 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah. So now lovable is hot. Probably so next tomorrow something else will be hot, right?
True.
So I think that's what is important.
Got it.
So ready for adopting, accepting a change.
Got it.
I think that's very important. The other part is the non-tech people. I think that's a fabulous opportunity for them, right?
Okay.
Because right now, if a non-tech person has to build something or do something on tech world, it was a big learning curve.
True.
With this, whatever the new tool sets available for them, they can really do a lot, right?
Yeah.
So be open to learn new tools and implement for yourself.
So I think that's so true, right? Everyone is sort of can use AI, right? Because that barrier, like, oh, I'm non-tech, so keep the code away from me. That's no longer an excuse, because like Lovable, you can just go in and give what you want and get some outputs. Maybe have a technical founder along with you or a technical person, but you have the opportunity to create an MVP, to experiment in the real world, to build your dream product, and then see what you want to do with it. Right?
Absolutely. That opens up a lot of doors, which were hard to open earlier, right? So you really needed a tech founder who can have very good understanding. Now with partial support also you can do something. Thinker.
And when you look at it from India, large population, right? It's from a consumer perspective, it's an opportunity, right? But it's also a risk, right? We're seeing these deep fakes and these things, and how do you at NASSCOM sort of look at it, enabling these billion plus people? Right? Now we're going to give them a tool, and I think right now maybe 100 million of them are using it, because I'm pretty sure like there's a huge set that's still just bridging the digital divide, coming on board. But they are now going to have immense power. But with immense power comes immense responsibility. Right? So how are we going to do this?
So I think the approach what we are taking is helping government adopt AI in their ministries. Right?
Yeah.
As we speak with Telangana government, we are implementing 6 different use cases for the ministries.
Okay.
Right. That's one big thing. Right. Again, similar efforts are going on with other state governments and central government. Right. We have been working with governments to implement AI in governance.
Okay.
Right. I think citizen-centric effort is a lot important, right? And citizen-centric policy making using AI is very, very important. I think these are things what will make big impact, right? But having said that, I think a lot of tools are available for citizens, but they should be also aware of the safety and the risk of that. Right?
True.
Like they can definitely use it, but if they are not safe or they don't know the perspective on risk, they can have a lot of issues.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I think everyone's got to get used to risk, right? Earlier you could say, I'm a non-digital guy, so I don't do email and all, and I'm safe. But now if you want to partake of the new economy, the opportunities it's going to give, you need to be digital, you need to use AI, and risk is going to be on a continuum, right? Yes, you use technology, there is some risk. If you're if you're just sort of educated and aware about it, there's an aspect where you can control it, right? And that's, I think, both an opportunity and a risk for our nation.
So we have been creating, MOOCs and sort of playbooks called AI for all in different languages.
Okay.
That we have been, sort of trying to enable citizen-centric learning also.
Wow. Yeah. Awesome. And so as we come to the end of the podcast, what would you say is that how does India become a global AI or agentic AI leader, right, in the next 12, 18 months? What are the plays that maybe tech companies do and maybe consumers of AI do, which is, again, I bring the perspective back to enterprise. What do you think, how do we do this?
I think I'll see this from 3 angles, right? One is definitely, first angle is government, right? Government has to start adopting AI and be more citizen-centric, and I think they are doing it. A lot of effort is happening from central, state, both governments to implement a lot of digitization, AI, emerging tech in their ministries. That's one, because they're the biggest adopters and they're the biggest wallet.
One use case you think that governments are getting right now, like either state or center?
See, most of these use cases are still in pilot phase, right?
Okay.
So it will be hard to say one.
Okay.
But again, I think I'll probably keep it for next time.
Sure, definitely.
Yeah. The other element definitely is, every workflow right, in a company is getting modified with the new tools available. So as a CEO of a big company, or as a sort of a CX of a big company, you think, how is my process currently operating, and how can you basically reinvent that, right? And for that you have to work with the internal tech teams and the startups and the innovation circle around them. So they have to really rethink that.
So you start with the blueprint of as is. Then you say, okay, what possible? And then you get in your tech team and startups and say, how?
Yes. And this is a hybrid approach. The business guys, the tech guys, and the innovation circle, I will call it. The definitely startup, research, and other enterprises, companies work together and build that whole workflow for that business.
Okay.
Believe me, if Indian companies don't do it, Fortune 500 companies are already working on it.
True. Right? Yeah, I really like the concept of innovation circle, right? So it's, you may be part of it, but you need to bring in your own teams, you bring in outsiders, and then it becomes that circle, right? Extremely strong, resilient, and you get innovation out of it.
So this is an enterprise level. And third, individual level, I think as individuals, probably I'll manage the tech people, the non-tech people, a marketer, right? My work day was A, B, C, D earlier, right? Now it's augmented with so many tools. How can I start implementing and delivering more?
Sure.
How can I optimize work, right?
Okay.
I think that's very important. Similarly for a sales guy, similarly for a testing guy or a QA guy in a manufacturing unit. I think that's very important to rethink. If we rethink, I think we can really, realize the potential of AI, which currently is starting, right?
Sure.
I think
it's latent, but it's coming.
It's coming up.
Yeah. Look, thank you so much, Ankit. I think that makes so much sense, right? You sort of rethink almost each and every part of your day and say, where does AI come in? Because it can come in everywhere. And it's not just the rethink, right? You said you move to the execution where you say experiment, learn, and really try with it. Thank you so much, Ankit, for your time today. It was wonderful talking to you. And again, very grateful for the work you all have been doing at NASSCOM.
Thank you.
And, really taking India and its tech scene to the world.
Well, thank you for having me here. I think wonderful work you guys are doing. I was hearing some of the production work what you're doing. Really excited to see that's getting implemented, and that too in India and with Indian companies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Happy innovating.
Yeah.